How from my enemies till all my fears have gone. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again to a family. Your blood flows through my veins. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child
Good afternoon. We're gonna get started here in a hot second. My camera's a little flipped around here, so I'm just gonna try and fix this. Um, Minor technical difficulties here before we get rocking and rolling. Um, all that fun stuff. Da, 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 da. There we go. Now we're right side up. That's much better. Uh, so I'm really excited about today's stream, mostly because we're gonna do a little bit of different stuff. I've been kind of chewing on like what did I want to. I've been chewing on it for the past 24 hours. What I wanted to paint today for you guys, and trying to figure out like where, kind of like what I'm in the mood for, where my heart's at, all that good stuff. And I'm kind of leaning towards doing a lighthouse. Um, I've not done a lighthouse before, so for a lot of people, you're probably thinking like, oh, that's very classic. I don't normally do classic. So you know that if like you've watched any of my other videos, that I don't do a lot of typical painting stuff. So um, we're gonna be doing a lighthouse today. I'm not gonna go too in detail with the lighthouse. Uh, I don't know. I'm not gonna say that because I might go super in detail with the lighthouse. The idea is I want to put like a lighthouse over here on the right. And then have it's all mirrored, so this is the right side for me, this is the left side. um so I'm gonna have it like the lighthouse over here, and then the water over this way, and I want to do like some waves crashing into the lighthouse and stuff. So that's my plan. um we're gonna see how this actually turns out. I want to do some sponging for the skyline. um I kind of want to make it look a little stormy. Um, I may or may not go through and actually put like lightning bolts or something in it. I don't know. But I want it to really look like there's a storm taking place. So we're gonna do a lot of darker blues, dark purples, little bit of like hints of cloud using some grays and stuff. So we're gonna go really dark um in the sky, and then the water we're going to do a lot of teals, turquoises, and a little bit of blue, so it's going to have that stormy water look to it. So I'm really excited about that. We're going to I'm going to get our palette together. We're going to get rocking and rolling in a hot second. Let me get my little rinse bucket over here. You guys probably, I've never shown this, so this is what I use to rinse my brushes in. This is a rinse uh, it's a rinse bin by Premier. Um, I like this. I used to use like coffee mugs and all that good stuff, and I would get concerned that I'd accidentally drink the water because I drink out of a coffee mug while I'm doing this stuff. So um, I got this guy, and I love it. So that's what I use. If you see me over there, like rinsing or dropping and stuff, and I like the different compartments, so it lets me kind of sort my brushes by size or color, so that way if I need to reuse the brush I can rinse it off and I don't have like pink hidden in that brush or something when it had like white or blue or whatever on it, so it makes it a little bit easier. So good. All right. So I'd said we were going to do some turquoises and blues, so we're looking at probably using our phthalo blue if it wants to focus on it. I don't know if it will. Oh, that's right, because everything's backwards. So, hold on. It has it all flipped weird. So you guys can actually read what it says. Let me see if I can fix this. I don't know if I can flip it horizontally or not. We're going to figure this out. I bet I can. I bet it's in here somewhere. There we go. We fixed it. I'm excited now. Now we're better. So now the right's right and the left's left and everything's good. All right. So phthalo blue and deep turquoise. We're gonna be using those for our water. Put them there. I will be using retarding medium today because I'm gonna use a good bit of it actually. because I want to do a lot of wet on wet for the sky and for the ground. So we're going to be using that today as well. We are going to be using Prussian blue in the sky and on the ground. So we're going to be using it in both locations for that. We're also going to be using our dioxazine purple, so my favorite purple on the planet, up in the sky. And I am going to pull a little bit of my rose madder. Oh. Yep. To use up in the sky as well. So we're going to be using that. Probably do some hints of it over here and stuff. So we're going to sponge on the sky. We're going to paint on the water. I do want to put like a little rocky cliff thing over here that the lighthouse will be sitting on. So for that, we are going to be using our browns. And I'm not sure if I want to do a classic white for the lighthouse or if I want to do like a stone look to the lighthouse. Lighthouse. I haven't figured that out yet. So that's something I'm kind of chewing on while we're doing all this. So I'm just gonna start making a huge ruckus over here. So we've got our burnt sienna, our raw sienna. We're gonna be using those for the ground. And I also want to use some raw. I think we're gonna use raw umber and raw sienna, not burnt sienna. I don't need it red. We don't need red tints in that. Now, if I decide to go through and do lightning, we'll use white for that. It is something I do need to determine kind of early on because I'll need to be able to sponge in the white of where the lightning bolt's going to be as it branches out and stuff. So it's something I do need to decide a little early on. So we're going to get to that in a minute. Let me grab a palette. Trusty little palette. That's covered in hair from my cats because my cats are mean. So my cats are really mean. They've punctured my palette. Hold on. I don't know if you can see this. My cats have punctured the palette, and it is all the way through. So this is not a safe palette to use. This is going to be trash, unfortunately. Oh no, I think I can get away with it actually, because it's just those two holes. So it just means I can't put any paint on this on the far side. So, so we're gonna load our palette real quick. We're gonna mix in our retarding medium so that way the paints dry slower, making it easier for us to go through and do everything. And I'm gonna be sorting it by location. So we're gonna go from the sky to the water and to the land. So instead of going, I usually go light to dark, we're actually going to be sorting it by what we're going to be working on. So that way it's easy to access. So this is our rose madder. And our dioxazine purple. And then our Prussian blue. I probably put too much rose madder on, and that's okay. I'll be alright with that. I'll work with it. So remember that's our Prussian blue. That's that dark, dark blue. So then going this way, we're going to go into our sea. So we got our phthalo blue. And our deep turquoise. Then going into our ground, we've got our burnt sienna. And then we'll have our raw sienna. And I'm actually going to put a little bit of sand on here for highlighting. Now the good news is I found out today that my shipment of titanium white will be arriving tomorrow. So I am beyond excited because I am down to like half an ounce of titanium white. So I'm gonna put a little bit of I'm debating if I want to use sand or pale lemon yellow for the highlighting. Because I'm doing wet on wet, I could do either. The pale lemon is gonna it's gonna obviously give a more yellow tint to it, which for the storm, if I'm putting If I put a lightning bolt in it, it'll look really good. If I'm just shadowing and shading, the sand would look better. No, because I'll use this. I bet I could use this for the light itself. So we're going to put the lemon yellow off to the side. I think I'm going to come back and use that with the golden yellow that I have over here. I'm going to use yellow cadmium, medium hue, for the light of the lighthouse. So we'll use these two to actually create the light. I'm not going to put them on now because we're going to use them so late towards the end that it doesn't matter right this second. And I'm going to use the sand for highlighting. I'm just going to put a little bit on there. Now comes the fun part. We're going to douse it all in retarding medium. And I want to douse it very well, because I want a lot of wet on wet going on over here. And I'm going to go really simple when it comes to mixing these. I'm just going to use the butt end of a paintbrush to make my life a little bit easier and to not complicate anything. I'm going to come over here and mix these browns together real quick. And feel free at any time, guys, if you want to jump in and say hi or talk about like your favorite artist or anything like that, you can always feel free to type into the chat. I will happily stop talking about whatever I'm talking about at that time and answer them or answer any questions or join any discussions that you guys decide to come up with along the way. Because I don't intend for this to be an instructional video, but it's kind of what it keeps turning into. Although we've had some really good conversations about like Bob Ross and painting styles and techniques and artists and all kinds of fun stuff. So there's a lot of open availability for open discussion. If you guys ever want to jump in and start chatting and start talking, go for it. I absolutely welcome it. There's something so satisfying about mixing paint with retarding medium. And I have no idea why. So now I'm going into my blues. So remember, this is the blues that we're going to be using for the water. And I'm going to put a big, well, not too big, amount of white on here to use as well. I have to be careful about the amount of white that I use right now, because like I said, I am low on white. Crazy low on white. It's sad. It's very, very sad. But I'm very low on white, so we're gonna try and conserve what we have, because I don't know what time tomorrow my paint order is supposed to arrive. And with everything that's going on, I don't know how accurate that estimation really is. So if I do not get my paint order tomorrow, I'll probably bust out the charcoals, and we'll do like a charcoal sketch or two instead of painting. Although I would much rather be painting. So remember, so this is the this right here is the Prussian blue. So this is that really dark blue. We're going to be using it in the sky and on the water. So we'll have that luxury to use it for both locations. So we can use, that's why it's kind of sitting between the two. It's going to be the depths in the water. It's going to be the dark storm of the sky. And it should be able to tie the colors between the two together. So that way it looks like the sky, the water is actually reflecting the sky as well, which is really important. Because water itself doesn't really have a color. It's just reflecting the sky. So and then my favorite color on the face of the planet. I might need to put a little bit more retarding medium in this, only because this purple is really, really thick. It's a heavier body purple than what I normally use. So I might need to put a little bit more retarding medium in with this to get this to thin out the rest of the way. I was not expecting it to be as heavy body as it is. Although it is starting to kind of mix up nicely. Starting to. It's very, very heavy. We might be alright. Alright, and then we're going to mix our red, and we'll get our white on here, and then we'll start painting. And it'll be fun. Now, I do tend to use a lot of, like, grayscale versus using blacks. So we will be using Payne's Gray again, instead of Mars. And I might bust out the Mars Black, I don't know. I don't use Mars Black a whole lot. I do tend to lean more towards Payne's Gray, because I think, it gives a more natural coloring. I feel like there's not a lot of things in nature that are pitch black like Mars Black is, so I don't tend to use it a whole lot. But at the same time, like, my artwork is not, it's reality with a pinch, so it's not actual. I don't expect it to completely and entirely reflect 100% of what we see or how we see it. So it's just like my rendition of it. So our colors are mixed with retarding medium. We're going to throw some white over here. And like I said, this poor guy here only has about this much left. So we're really, really, really low. So I'm going to just squeeze literally the life out of this thing and see if we can get enough white to function. We'll work our way down the tube here, squeezing all of the paint out of this. Oh, it's got less than that in here. Oh, it's so sad. I have about maybe that same amount left in the tube. So I'm going to call it right there just in case it starts to dry out or I need more. I do have that option, but I don't want to overdo that. And I'm still going to add my retarding medium on it because, again, I don't want that white to dry out really fast, especially because I'm going to be using it so much throughout the painting. So let's give us a good old mix. There we go. Now, when we're adding retarding medium, I do have to take into consideration that it is going to tone down the colors a little bit, and almost dilute it a little bit. Although retarding medium is clear, it still can dilute it. So I want to make sure when I do put it on, I don't put on just super thin layers, because it'll look nearly transparent or semi-transparent when I go to use it. So I want to keep that in mind when I'm using retarding medium as well to slow that dry time. Alright, so I'm going to set this guy right over here. So, like I said, we're going to do a lighthouse over here on some rocks, and we're going to do a sky, and we're going to do some water. So the first thing I need to do is put my sky in place. We're going to be sponging that on today. So I'm going to be using, let me get my trusty little sponge. I buried it at the bottom of my container under every single brush I own. And this is where I wish I had long fingers. There we go. Now, before I go straight into using this lovely little guy, I want to make sure he's wet, because a dry sponge is just going to absorb all of my paint, and I don't want that, so I'm just going to come over here and douse him a little bit, so he's nice and drenched. And squeeze it out. There we go. It also helps him kind of pick up some more size, makes the pores open up really well. And then what I'm looking for is what part of the sponge I want to use. I really like the texturing on this part of the sponge, so this is probably what I'm going to use. It's very nice, soft textures. Over here, it gets really dense, but really it's a lot of dense sponge with big pores. This is a lot of, where is it? Right here. It's a lot of really soft open pores. So I think that's going to give us the best of the blending to create what we're looking for. So we're going to use that side. I'm going to start with my, I'm going to start with a little bit of white on the on the sky, and I want to figure out where my skyline's going to be. So I'm going to take this little brush here, put a little bit of white on it, and I'm just going to put a line about where I want my skyline to be. And I think I want it to land right about here. So this will be my horizon line. And I'm using white because white will be beneficial for both the sky and the water when they meet. It's not going to hurt either of them. And I want to make sure I put it on thick enough that it'll stay a little wet, so it'll work with me for everything that I'm going to do with it. And there's a couple different techniques you can do when you're doing your horizon line. I like to use paint to mark my line. You can also use a tape. So I could take like painter's tape or scotch tape and tape straight across, and that'll give me a very firm, hard horizon line. I want this to be a little jagged because waves aren't always straight across. Remember, this is during the middle of a storm, so it is going to be a little rough on the horizon. So now we're going to go through, and I want to go dark into a little bit lighter, and then pull back up into the darker edges up here. So I want up in here to be darker, and down over here to be darker. And in the center here, I'm intentionally dropping white because I want this to be a little bit of lighter shades of the colors that I'll be putting down. And I'll use this white to my advantage to highlight everything as I'm going. Alright, so we'll drop that in the water. So now I'm going to take my sponge with the designated side that I determined I liked. I want to work with my lighter colors into my darker colors, because if I go straight into my darker colors and work my way out, I'm not going to be able to hold a lot of the colors out. So if I go straight starting with Prussian blue, when I get to red, my red's definitely going to be more of a purple. So if I go from my red to my dioxazine purple into my Prussian blue, we're going to see those colors really hold fast. So we're going to start with our red first. And I'm just going to put a little bit on here. And I'm going to start by side tapping in open spaces where I didn't put any white. So that way I can kind of get it onto the palette, and then I'll work on blending it out here in a minute. So right now we're just applying and placing. And I'm going to place large quantities out. There we go. And then we're going to... So I'm going to use my paper towel here, and I'm actually going to just kind of pinch and swipe to pull a lot of that red off. It's not all of it, but it's going to pull a good chunk of it off. And I'm going to grab some purple and do the same thing. Remember, the purple is important that it goes right between the red and the blue, because remember, as you're transitioning from a blue into a red, you're going to have areas of purple, and that's what I want this purple for. So we're going to place that down strategically on the edges of our darker spots. And then we're going to grab some of that Prussian blue. And we're going to dab a lot of it on here. Alright, so now we're going to start to blend this out. So I'm going to balance this lovely palette up here out of the way. And we're going to blend our blue in, and then we'll work our purples, and then we'll work our reds. And then we'll see from the white that's already there if it ends up creating a space that I can go through and put a lightning bolt off of. I will, but we'll wait and see what it comes up with on its own first. So here we go. To make sure that I definitely take the time to press all the way through the sponge to ensure that I'm getting a full coverage of those areas. Partial presses will not give you full coverage, and I can't swipe. If I swipe, I'll lose a lot of my coloring. I'll lose a lot of the paint to other areas, and I don't want that. You also want to make sure that you're giving it a good even pressing, so that'll ensure that the colors definitely go where they're supposed to and how they're supposed to. So you can see where some of this white was. It's got like these dots showing up. So I'm just going to keep tapping over them to blend those out. And I'll press really hard in those areas to really get them to try and blend out. Now I'm going to go through it. I'm going to add more white onto this to really give the appearance of clouds. So I'm going to take my already dirty sponge and I'm just tapping it into that white. And then I'm going to place and then sponge. I'm going to do another one a little bit lighter right here in the center. And I'm kind of trying to make this look a little bit like this really heavy duty cloud that's hanging off in the background. Very, very intense cloud of storm taking place over here. Because I want that. I want this to look like a really stormy day. I don't want it to look like, oh, it's sunny and pretty. I want that look of a storm, and I think we're getting that really well. Give me 1 second. Let me... Had to create some distance from the painting so I could get a good look at it. I don't like, so I'm getting this very heavy waving, and I want to kind of balance this out a little bit. So I'm going to pick up just a hair more of that white. So when I say a hair, I mean just a little bit. And I'm going to try and fluff this in, up into here, to create some haphazard shaping in these clouds. So it doesn't look like it's two clouds perfectly waving together. I want to create some haphazardness to this. There we go. I think that looks much better. So we've got our storm clouds. It worked out that I'm not going to be putting a lightning bolt in it because it's how the clouds develop. So we're not gonna worry about that. I do need to get this soaking in water before it starts to dry because I don't want to damage my sponge. So we're going to set this bad boy off to the side to start soaking. And I'm going to get a fresh paper towel because I'm covered now in water and paint. And we're going to brush in the water here. So before we do that, I'm going to clean up my mess because my desk is a disaster now. So I'm just using rubbing alcohol on my desk. And a paper towel. And some of this paint is from like yesterday's painting, and the rubbing alcohol is taking it right off. It breaks down the bond of acrylic paint. It also gets acrylic paints out of clothes. So if you're painting and you get acrylic paint on one of your favorite articles of clothing, don't panic. Immediately soak it in acrylic or in rubbing alcohol, and then take a paper towel, and you should be able to get it to come most of the way out, if not all the way out. So we have our skyline, so you can see it without that lovely glare from the camera. We'll angle it a little bit. There we go. So now you can see what that looks like. So we're going to take this, we're going to add in our flooring down here, our water down here. And I want to put this like a rocky outcropping right here. And it is going to extend up into the heaviness of the clouds. So we're going to bring that in as well. So we're going to go into our water first, because I can always do the ground around it as we're going. So let me try this off, because we'll use this for the rocks, and then I'm gonna use an angle brush. This is a what is this? This is a 1-inch angle. I'm gonna use this to apply the water because I want to go from that Prussian blue that I've used in the skyline out here on the edge and pull it forward for shading. Uh, I'm gonna be using probably more teal than I am anything else because of how the colors are gonna blend out. So I'm gonna take a little bit of this Prussian blue right on the edge of the brush. So it's right on, just on the edge. And I want to draw my horizon line using this Prussian blue. And I'm intentionally taking the time to make it not perfect. So I don't want it to be a perfect horizon line. There we go. There we go. So we've got the beginning of our horizon line, and then we're going to draw it forward. As I'm going, I'll be applying white and then the paint and then a little bit more white and then more paint. So we're going to go inch by inch down through this canvas panel until we've layered all of our white. The ground itself is going to be coming up. I don't want to do this. So I kind of want to go with a cliff. I don't know that we're going to end up with a cliff, though. I have a feeling it's going to end up being like this little rocky outcropping that this paint, the lighthouse is sitting on. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what this ends up turning out. I can always go through and wait for this area to dry and then do the lighthouse over it. Let's just get the water on first. So I got my Prussian blue down, so I'm going to do a little bit of white. So we're just going to go a little bit by little bit. So I'm going to do a nice line of white. I'm going to do a little bit of Prussian blue. I'm still just using that Prussian blue. I'm going to take whatever's left on the brush and just kind of clear that out. I'm going to take a little bit of white, so just a little bit on the corner here. There we go. And I'm going to go from the Prussian blue into that phthalo blue that we've got on here, so a little bit brighter. Just a little bit. I want to make sure I take the time to blend that in so we get that nice seamless transition. more white. And some more that fallow blue. Now I'm going to take just a little bit of the Prussian blue and draw that in to darken this out a little. And let's just get it, again, we're just adding some more depth to the waters. We're just going to keep going inch by inch here. Again, a little bit more white. I'm intentionally leaving these whites here. So I want to bring this blue right up to the edge of them. We're going to turn those into some waves. And I'm going to pull some more white. There we go. And again, we're going to do a little bit of the phthalo, but we're going to start adding in some turquoise. And there's animal hair on my palette. There we go. Silly animals. Their hair is everywhere in this house. see if we can get the last little bit of this edge over here. Now, normally I wouldn't worry about going edge to edge right now, because I am planning to put ground over here, but I don't know where I'm putting it yet. So I don't want to omit the chance of properly covering my canvas here. And it's funny because I've seen some artists that will paint the edges of their canvas panels, or not paint them, coat them in like a tape, or put tape down or something to give the give you like an edge to hold on to or whatever. And I thought about it. I actually stopped and I was like, maybe I'll like tape down the edges of my panel today, so I'll have a holding ground. No, I didn't do that. I was not that intelligent today. Um, so we've got our ground, our sea down. We've got our sky. I want to go through and start adding some whites to this while it's still drying, so that way I can get those waves and I can get all that stuff going in here. I'm trying really hard to not keep turning this, but it's easier for me to paint at an angle than it is to paint straight up and down. So we're going to add in our whites, and we're going to try and add in some, just some appearance of some turbulence on the water. So we've got like this little bit here in the center. We're going to give a little bit more right over here. So remember, it's a sea, or it's a storm. So the idea is that there's a lot of foam on the water right now. start to figure out how I want this to actually look. I am such a spontaneous person. Even my paintings are spontaneous. I don't really know what they're going to look like till they're done. And that's just kind of how I roll. So I'm going to add a little bit of sand and we're going to start pulling in these highlights. There we go. We're starting to see the formation, and you can almost see like the space where it looks like the lighthouse would actually sit. So you've got this big opening right here. That's exactly where I'm going to pull that lighthouse up out of. So we're going to keep adding a little bit of coloration down here amidst this. Just going to start finish filling it out here. And help with the casting of the shadows from the lighthouse and everything, the storm or whatever that's raging around it. I want to make sure that everything lays appropriately. All these colors are nice and blended. There we go. I'm just get a nice dark outline on the edge of this real quick. Alright, so we've got our ground in play. The lighthouse is going to come up out of here, and like I said, I think I'm going to use the same colors, more of the sand and stuff to give it that textural look of stone, because that's kind of, I think the look I want to go for is that it looks like a stone lighthouse, and not like the white and red or anything. So I have to remember think on how I want this to look. So, because I want to make sure I capture all of the structure of the lighthouse. There's so many different styles of lighthouses out there. So I'm kind of thinking, like, do I want to, like, some of them you see that they've got this nice firm ridge or ledge up at the very top that you can walk around on, and for some like some styles it's blended in, you don't really see that, or in some of them you really do see it. I think I kind of want the one that you can see from the outside, or something similar to that. So I'm gonna use what do I want to use? I think I'm going to use raw sienna. And we're going to draw our upward. So I want the edge of the tower, the lighthouse, to be right about there. So then, and it has to be like at an angle. So I want to make sure that I am reflecting that, but I don't want it at too harsh of an angle. Oh, stink. That was almost bad. I'm just kind of getting an outline of it so I can see where I want everything to be. I don't want to overload my brush because uh, I'll lose some of this lining because there's too much on the brush. So I want to keep that in mind. How much am I using on my brush while I'm doing this? I'm just going to draw this line down a little bit more. So I'll probably get my Payne's gray out here in a minute, and we'll pull onto this. We'll add some windows and stuff. Before I do that, I do want to add my ledge in here. So the idea is I want this ledge right along here, and then it'll go from that. The glass will come up, still following along those lines. And then it should round into a cone point. So I've just got like a faint outline of what that's going to look like up towards the top. I want this to sit a little bit more before I do too much more to it. I am going to shade this in to match the shading down here. I'm going to shade up the top a little bit. But for the most part, once this is done, I'm going to let it sit for a minute. So I'll probably take a break while this sets, and I'm waving the canvas around like a crazy lunatic, trying to get it to dry a little bit. So we can try and add on to this a little bit more. But so real quick, we're going to come in here with some raw umber, and I'm going to just shade in this bottom portion because I want to give the appearance of depth. And I'm tapping because my raw umber is actually thinned out a whole lot from the amount of retarding medium that I've put on here, which that's fine, I'm okay with, but I want to be able to accommodate for that. And we're going to go from the raw umber to the raw sienna. Ooh, I may have put too much on my brush. So I'll look at it. And I'm just zigzagging back and forth between the two to create the blending that I'm looking for. And then we'll come in with the sand. And start blending that in. I'm going to create this white line up towards the top to give the idea of a perimeter up there. One of the things I like is when I do smaller canvases like this, I can take the time to create this attention to detail that I don't normally get with bigger canvases. So I do like that with this. I can get down and I can take the time to create these little details and little lines and stuff. And the same thing that I did down here, I'm going to do up here at the top. We're going to start with our raw umber. And I'm going to create the shadowing up here at the top of this pyre. Or I guess it'd be the roof to the lighthouse. And I'm going to create a line going this way. That's going to be the shadowed edge of the roof. I'm going to start tapping it out. Again, it's going to go at a bit more of an angle. Because again, everything is still very round, and I want to make sure I remember that. feel like my angles are off. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna hijack this for a moment. Oh, they're a little off. So we're just gonna fix this real quick. They're not too off, but they're just a hair. The bigger issue is that it was a little too straight up and down, or straight across. It needed to have more curvature to it. I'm just gonna fix the curvature down here as well. There we go. I'm going with some of that raw sienna. And we're going with some sand. Remember, with the sand, I start off by tapping, and then I'll start blending that out. But I want to make sure I hit those edges. I love the attention to detail that I can get into this with. That is one plus side to doing a painting like this. I can take the time that I don't normally have. So when I'm up on stage painting at church, I'm on I do feel like I'm kind of on a time limit. Even if my pastor says I'm not, I can take as much time as I want. I still have that feeling because when worship stops, I kind of feel like I should be done in honor of the moment. So it is kind of nice to be able to have the chance to get in here and give the attention to detail that I always like giving. I'm just cleaning up some spots on here that my brown had splattered. So I want to let this dry a little bit. This is 90% dry. This is 90% dry. This is 100% wet. So we're going to give this a chance to dry. We're going to take a quick 15-minute, or probably like a 5-minute break. We're just going to take a quick 5-minute break. I'm going to get a fan on this, try and get this to dry a little bit faster. Then we're going to come in. We're going to add some attention to detail here, and then we're going to add some waves crashing in around the racks. So we're going to be back in 5.
God, I look to you, and I won't be overwhelmed. Give me vision to see things like you do. God, I look to you, and you're where my help comes from. Give me wisdom, you know just what to do. And I will love lift it up. Sing it over your family. Sing it over our government. Sing that hallelujah. Sing it out. And hallelujah. Yeah, come on. Come on, sing it over the hopeless. Sing it over the broken. Come on, sing hallelujah. And hallelujah. And hallelujah. Our God reigns. And hallelujah. Our God reigns. Forever all my days. Hallelujah. Come on, let them shout praise. And hallelujah, our God reigns. And hallelujah, our God reigns. Yes, hallelujah, our God reigns. Forever all my days. Hallelujah.
All right, we are back. So the brown is not drying as fast as I would like it to. So we're gonna take a little bit, and we're gonna work a little bit more on the water and yeah, I'm struggling with this brown. I've been waving it around like a crazed lunatic in my computer room, in my office here, in my computer room, and it's still, as you can see, very, very wet. Because there's a lot of layers of brown on there. So I'm just gonna let that kind of hang out and do its own thing for a minute. I do have to take a moment and laugh because it looks like a dark, dark shadow on your screen, or on the stream, but it's actually very. There you go. It's actually very light. It's just the angling of the lighting. It's not quite as dark as it looks. So I have to kind of laugh about that. So I am going to load some Payne's Gray onto the palette. We're going to start to do some outlines on here and start tackling that. I do still want to put some waves crashing up onto the rocks and maybe even over a little bit, but I can't do anything until this brown dries, unfortunately, because if I start to add blue on top of this or white on top of it, it's just going to smear and turn to a disgusting puddle of poo. We don't want that. So I'm going to start loading some Grains Pay on here. Payne's Gray. There we go. I need coffee. I'm just gonna take a moment. Give me a moment. There we go. We'll just reset. So I'm gonna load some Payne's Gray onto the palette. And we're gonna start to outline and create the location for the lighting. Now, I'm not going to add my light in right away. Again, I still need this all to dry out so that way it will show properly. Sorry, my mom keeps messaging me on Facebook. So I have to just kind of hide her messages. There we go. So we'll come back to that. Right now I want to get some lines on here. So let me find a nice tiny brush. It's either going to be that one or one of my script brushes. It's going to be my smallest. I really should go find... You know what I should have done while we were on break? Is go and find my five hair brush that's sitting in my art room somewhere. That's alright, though. I'll work with this. Here we go. So I've got these two script brushes, and I've got this little guy here. And I don't know which one's actually the thinnest. Let me dampen these brushes here. Get some points going. Normally I just lick them. But I'm not going to do that on stream because I don't want to gross anybody out. But it doesn't bother me. Normally I just lick the tip of the brush to get it to come to a point. So looking at these, I think, um, so this one's definitely too thick. So I think these two are my thinnest. So this is a 10 script, and this is like a 10 round, I think. So I think they're the same size when it comes to the point. I think I'm going to have more control with the smaller one than I am with the bigger one. So these are the two that we're choosing between, and I think I'm going to go with the blue one instead of my amethyst, my favorite brush line on the face of the planet. So we're going to load some Payne's Gray on here. And I'd said before, like, I tend to use Payne's Gray more than I use Mars Black, only because I feel like it gives more natural shadowing and darkening versus, like, I feel like black is so dark, especially in comparison to Payne's Gray. I always feel like if I use black, I'm using too much. And so I just loaded the Payne's Gray on here, so you can see how much I loaded. Just a little dollop, not a whole lot, because I don't need a whole lot to be able to make these lines and stuff. Alright, so we're gonna go and add some lines on here. I'm gonna do this with a wet brush so I can get some nice fine lines. So I'm gonna go into my clean water area and just start with a damp brush and a little bit of Payne's Gray right on the tip of this. Now you can see, like, it starts to bulb, creates like this little, hold on, I don't know if you can see where it kind of bulbouses out around this. So I don't want that, so I'm just gonna take my palette and just create like a streak of paint that I can pull from. And that just kind of also pushes the paint through the brush, through the bristles. So I'm going to start by hitting the edge of this one down here. So I want that nice shadow down here, and draw it upward. Now I'm not really pressing, I'm just applying. I don't want to press and move any of the paint that's already there. And I could I think I'm actually going to take the time, I'm going to draw this out a little bit. I want to create a little bit of a shadow coming off of the back of this, just a little bit. So we're just going to pull a little bit of this out. To give this somewhat appearance of a shadow coming off the back end of that. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. And we're going to come up here and we're going to pull some lines for shadowing down here on the base of this. Now I always laugh because my an old art teacher of mine, I was only in her class for half of a semester. If you go, so you can understand how long I actually was in art classes. That was half a semester in college. She told me that the world doesn't have lines, we put them there, and they're perceived, and they're not real, and all this stuff. And I've spent a lot of time trying to unlearn some of the stuff that she taught, because it's hindered how I like to paint. So I always tell people, keep that in mind, like when you're painting, paint for you, don't paint for anybody else. Don't worry about what other people think when you do your artwork, because it's all about you. Like what are you feeling? How does it work? How do you want it to look? What perception are you trying to create with it? I'm just adding some shadow highlight, or shadow, I guess lowlights, I don't know, shading in splotches on the roof here. And I intentionally kind of want it splotchy. I don't want it perfect. So I want it to give that appearance of like there's a actual roof. It's not a perfect roof. It actually looks better far away than it does close up. So I keep sitting back and looking at the monitor like, oh, that actually looks like I know what I'm doing. Man. And I'm just gonna throw in a couple of hints of that Payne's gray in the shadow down here at the bottom. Not a lot, just a little bit. There we are. And then I want to go through, and I'm just going to add some darkening down here a little bit. Again, not a whole lot, just a little. It's just to increase the idea of shadows on the embankment here. I have no clue what my neighbors are doing, but they are really loud. There we go. So I just added a little bit of dark lines. I know you can't really tell, just to give some hints of additional shading. There we go. I don't know which way I don't know. You can kind of tell. I don't know. Looks really good with natural lighting, so, we'll go with it. So I want to be able to add in these waves. Trying to figure out how I'm going to do this while this brown is still a good bit wet. And then up here, I'm leaving these brown lines light brown. I'm going to go through and use Payne's gray to darken them once I put my lighting in. But I haven't done the lighting yet, so I'm not going to do that yet because I don't want to smear like gray essentially in with the lighting. So I want to put a couple of waves crashing up in the back, and then I want to put a couple that are crashing up towards the front. Maybe like a little bit of, I want to put like water coming in over here, maybe, or on recession or something. I don't know. But I want to get some water crashing up over here, and most of that's just done using white, and flicking and like flicks. So that's easy right here. The hard part is going to be getting it over here in the front too. Because I want it... I know what I want it to do, and I don't know that I can get it to do it while it's still wet. This is the downside. This is the plus side and the downside to painting. I know what I want. It won't let me do it. Grumble. Alright, so what I'm going to do while I'm still waiting on that brown to dry, I'm just going to take my phthalo blue, or my Prussian blue, and I'm going to go back over this dark line in the background, my horizon line, and just deepen it a little bit while I put my thin brush out. So I'm always looking for little details that I can expand on while I'm waiting for stuff to dry. Because waiting on paint to dry stinks. It always stinks. I love that it takes, I love that it allows for a lot of blending and manipulating while it's wet, but I hate that it takes forever to dry afterwards. So I'm just adding some darker accents to the horizon line. Oh, you guys can't even see what I'm doing because I'm at an angle. I'm sorry. So I'm using the Prussian blue along the horizon line here, and I'm just darkening some of the areas. Just a little, nothing major, but it's gonna add some more depth to the image, more depth to the water. I just kind of add some depth to the water, some darkness to the stormy waters. There we go. There we go. I like that. That's much better. So I'm gonna go ahead and add in a little bit of the yellow for the lighting. I guess I'm gonna hold off on putting waves on here until later, um, because this is still horrendously wet, um, and I don't need my waves turning into a light brown. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm just gonna add yellow onto a little bit of yellow on my palette to pull off some lighting to make it look like it's a lit um, lighthouse, not just a stagnant lighthouse. Which brush is that? That's what I want. I'm going to use two brushes for this, and they're both my little round brushes. So I'm going to use my 10 round that I was using for my outlining. And then I'm going to use what is this, a 1? Yeah. So I've got a 10 and a 1 that we're going to be using here to create the lighting for the actual lighthouse. All right. So in the very center, I want it to be lighter and I want it to draw darker. So we're gonna use our pale lemon yellow, and I just need a drop. I don't need a whole lot. And I'm gonna use my cadmium yellow medium hue, because that's a mouthful. Again, I just need a drop, so I don't need a whole lot of either of these. The pale yellow, I'm going to use in the very center in place of white, and then I'm going to dab around it with some of this, and then we're going to kind of smear it and blend it together to create the look of a lit lighthouse. So we're going to go right in the center with this light yellow, and I'm going to dab a little bit out on the outside, not a whole lot, and then I'm going to come in. Actually, I might just use this brush for the whole thing. With the yellow. And I'm dabbing because I'm going to follow up with brush strokes here in a minute, but I want to make sure that I have enough paint on here to create what I'm going for. There we go. I'm going to clean off my brush mostly. I'm going to start dragging it out. off the lighthouse now. And I'm just using excess paint off my brush to give the appearance of additional light coming off of it. So now that I have the light actually being cast off, I can go in with the Payne's Gray and start adding in the rest of the detail to the lighthouse. Get some bars on there to hold the roof up. Again, I'm just using that thin round brush. We're gonna add some lines here. These are awfully quiet today. I'm just increasing the line of detail on this to give that nice strong appearance of the lighthouse. I think we might almost be done. I mean, I do definitely want to come through and add waves and stuff, and what I might do is tomorrow's stream start off by finishing this one, adding those waves on, and then start up on something new. I'm kind of leaning towards busting out the charcoal tomorrow, to be honest. I haven't gotten that out in a hot minute, so I'm thinking I might get the charcoal out and we'll do some charcoal tomorrow. It is by far my favorite medium ever. So I always love getting the charcoal out whenever I can. So we might do that, do some sketching. I tend to sketch pretty quickly. There we go. There we are. There we go. There we go. We have a lighthouse. This is the awesome part. This is the first time I've done a lighthouse. I think it turned out pretty darn awesome. I am going to do actually one more thing here. And I do this with like wine glasses and stuff when I paint those. In the highlighted area, I do a very thin line right there along that highlight, just to give the appearance of a potential shadow. So we're just going to do a very thin line of Payne's Gray right along here. And I'm trying to follow along the imperfection of the brush strokes, because that gives leniency to an imperfect lighthouse, which I'm okay with. I think the imperfection really adds to the painting. So that just kind of makes that highlighted area pop just a hair more by giving that fine line. And it's a very, like I said, it's a very fine line. It's nothing huge um, in the way of detail and stuff. Nothing major, not a heavy line. If I go in too heavy handed, it's gonna make it look more shadowed, and I don't want that. So I want to keep that lighting. So there we have it. We have the first lighthouse I've ever done in the 9 years that I've been painting. So you guys got to witness that. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I'm extremely happy with how the sky turned out. It doesn't quite look as stormy as I'd like it to, but that's okay. I think once we get the waves added in tomorrow, we're going to see that storminess really start to appear on it. If you enjoyed the stream today, please be sure to click that follow button so you can see more of the fun stuff that we'll be doing. Tomorrow we're going to add the waves to this lovely painting, really make it look a little bit more stormy when we add those waves crashing around the lighthouse. We're going to hit that tomorrow, and then we're probably going to go into either some charcoal or we'll start a whole new painting tomorrow. Thank you, Gadorsha. I am very, very happy with it. I think this is probably one of the best paintings I've done. So I'm excited to get it framed and up on the walls. So there's that information for you guys. Like I said, if you enjoyed today, be sure to hit that follow button. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for hanging out and everything. It's been a pleasure and an honor to be with you. Stay creative, and we will see you guys tomorrow night.